Welcome to Our Drummers Musicians, your backstage pass to Melbourne's vibrant music scene. Recorded on a cosy couch in Brunswick, join us as we explore what it truly means to be a musician and speak to the diverse talents that make music in our city. Today on the podcast, we're sitting down with Marigolden, the stage name for Nipaluna-born, Naarm-based artist Mel O'Neill. Her music is a rich blend of folk and indie rock, with lyrics that delve into the tensions and nuances of human experience. Since her emergence, Marigolden has garnered significant attention, finding her way into editorial playlists with Apple Music and MTV, as well as features with Pile Rats, the AU Review, and Acid Stag. Her tracks have been played across Australia and internationally, including on Triple J, Triple R, PBS, FBI Radio, 2SER FM, and Adelaide Radio. Solidifying her presence in the indie rock and folk live scenes, she has supported acts such as Tig, Hannah McKittrick, Adam Newling, and Bob Evans. Mel is a great friend of yesteryear and the first person I sat next to on day one of my music degree at Monash University. She has recently completed the AIR Women in Music Mentorship, during which she explored a values-driven career with her mentor, Charlotte Abrams, and how this authentically reflected in her music. Join us as we delve into Mel's musical journey, discuss her artistic processes, and explore all the little adventures in between. We want to take a moment to acknowledge the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people of the Kulin Nation as the traditional custodians of the land on which this podcast was recorded. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. Welcome to the podcast, Mel.
Thank you so much for having me.
What is the most recent album that you've listened to?
Oh my goodness. Okay. Like in full?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you do that anymore?
I don't really do that as much anymore. I randomly am someone who like puts off listening to new albums
Interesting.
a lot because I think I get so attached to the artists that I love that when they put out a new album, I'm like really hesitant because I'm like holding on to the relationship I have with them already, which is weird. But randomly I listened recently while I was driving to like Lizzie McAlpine's albums, like just a bunch of them because I was going on a big drive. And I don't even remember what they're called, but yeah, her music spans a lot of different genres I've discovered. And yeah, so that whatever those are.
Okay. Well, the latest one is older.
Okay.
Did you venture into the
I
newest
think so.
one?
I mean, I was driving, so I couldn't like check it, but I was like cheekily saving some. Is that like one that's like a bit more, there's like more production, it's a bit more electronic and stuff?
Sort of. It's like, it's gone a little bit back to like raw.
It's gone back to the folk. Okay, cool.
Yeah, more like piano based and stuff. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to have to check it out because I feel like I did see a couple of songs come up, so maybe those were the ones I was saving because I preferred the kind of like her earlier stuff, and then the other stuff was cool, but I could hear like how she was like trying to explore and get out of the like folk artist like pigeonhole, and I was like, I'd like you to go back to that, please. Because that's what I love. Yeah.
It's so interesting that you talk about the like relationship you have with the artist though, and like the sound, and I've definitely experienced that with like there's an artist that's just playing music that I like, and then the new album's a different direction, and
yeah, and you're just like, and I'm always nervous, and I'm just like, I listen to it, and I'm one of those people where it always takes me a couple listens of the album to be like, okay, yeah, I do like it, because like I will rinse and repeat albums and grow so attached to them. And then when new songs come out, I'm just like, I don't love this song as much, but it's just because I'm not as familiar with it. And it takes a few listens to get there. But like Kimbra is a good example. Like her first album I was obsessed with, and then her every album's been so different. And I still like value her so much as an artist and respect her so much as an artist, but like she's just grown into a different artist that is not so much my taste anymore. But yeah, so albums are a tricky one. Yeah.
Well, I always like to ask because it's so different with lots of people.
Yeah.
Like I really like an album.
Yeah.
And I'm quite dedicated to listening to albums. But like the modern thing is not really that anymore. It's like singles and playlists, and
it's kind of special when you can actually sit down. I think the last time, this is going to be so embarrassing, but like the last time I did actually sit down with the intention of like listening to an album start to finish was the Tortured Poets Department, Taylor Swift. Because I was so curious to like see, there was so much hype about it and everything. I sat down to do it, and it was like really overwhelming.
Is that the new one?
That's the new one.
Like the newest one?
Yeah,
okay.
The newest one. And it was really overwhelming, and I was like, why do all the songs kind of sound the same?
Wasn't it like 30 songs or
Yeah,
something?
it was like a surprise double album. I don't think I got to the double album, like the second bit. Yeah, it didn't have like as much flow as I thought. But yeah, I think I'd like to get back into listening to full albums start to finish. And there's certain artists that I'll reserve that, like that privilege for. But I have to like be a diehard. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like Phoebe Bridgers is like someone who like when she releases an album, I'm like, okay, cool. We'll do a start to finish listen. But then I'll just go back and listen to the tracks I love.
Yeah, sure. Do you have like a, a place at home or like a pair of headphones or something that is part of this the special album listening process? Or is it more, just when you're in the car, you've got the time so you can chuck the whole album on then?
I think the car listening is like when it's an artist that I'm curious about. Like I hadn't listened to much Lizzie McAlpine before, but I loved a couple of her songs and I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to chuck some on to like listen and see what she's about. But at home, if it's like a Sunday afternoon with a blanket on the couch with my dog and I like will put it on like speakers or whatever, that's where I'll like do a long album listen at home. Yeah.
Lovely. What's it like?
Alone.
Oh, okay. Yes.
I need to be alone.
Is the dog allowed in the room?
The dog's allowed.
Okay.
I don't think he's listening. He might be. I don't know. It could be.
Are you like an eyes closed, turn it up really loud and sit there, or do you do something else whilst you're
No.
listening?
Well, I wouldn't do something else. I'm like there. Like I'm probably an eyes closed person, but not really loud.
Sure. Oh, okay.
No. I want to still like have my surroundings. I want to be aware of what's going on around me. But I think the only thing I would do while I was listening would be something like painting or something like that. Like I wouldn't be doing anything that's taking up too much of my brain space, but something that's just like hands based. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
Like cooking, for instance, I'm like way too distracted because cooking is stressful to me. So I wouldn't do that. But if it was like painting or like, I don't know how to knit, but like I imagine knitting. Maybe I'll learn one day.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned Kimbra because I remember texting you a couple of years ago being like, oh, the new Kimbra album's come out.
Yes.
And, I remember that you just like loved Kimbra. But you were like, oh, I haven't listened to the album.
Yeah, literally.
And I was like, oh, I don't understand. But now hearing the explanation, it makes sense.
Totally. And I think that album, was that I still know what it's called, Primal Heart. Was that one? It's like a blue cover.
Yeah.
Yeah. That album really deviated.
It did. It was super different.
It was super, super different. And even like her second album, I think it was Golden Hour, was so different from her first album. Also like remembering how much I loved Kimber, the fact that I know all her album names. But Primal Heart the production went in like I think she was really getting into self-production at that point, which is amazing. And I think like, I love that she's done that. But I think she was like exploring much more electronic based stuff and still like all of the vocals that I love, but like in a really, like she was really pushing boundaries genre wise and stuff. And it was just like, it didn't hit for me. But then I think she's released another album since then, potentially. And I've listened to a couple of tracks from there, or more recent tracks from recent years. And she's still such a solid songwriter, like incredible songwriter. I can still appreciate that when I listen to her. But yeah, that album didn't hit the mark for me. Did you end up listening to
I did.
To it? Yeah?
Yeah,
What
but
did
I
you think?
didn't love it.
Yeah.
Similarly, it was kind of different. I try and keep quite an open mind and listen to a full album just for the, I don't know, I like to try and just listen to new music and sit in the space of the whole thing.
Yeah.
But definitely didn't capture me.
Yeah.
Like some of the earlier stuff that I thought was really cool or whatever. But you're right, I think she was really pushing boundaries of certain things and trying to grow, well, was growing and pushed it into just a different place.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, if I think about your like music, and it's interesting thinking that you say like, oh, I like, you know, holding the moment in time of, you know, an album or a period of time of like an artist. But your music's like changed quite a bit over the years.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you think that's like part of you just like, you know, growing and changing? But, you know, with your listening, perhaps it's nice to have the comfort of, you know, the old sounds and the classic favorites whilst like your original music is growing and changing?
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's interesting, even when you were saying about Lizzie McAlpine, like her first album was pretty folky, and then, yeah, I heard some stuff. And again, I like was listening while I was driving, so I don't know the timeline. But there was some stuff that was a lot more like pop and electronic and stuff like that. And then you saying that she's come back more to that piano place. I feel like I've done like a similar thing where like where I'm at with my songwriting now is a lot more like where I would have sat like, I don't know, 10 years ago or something. And I think that like I've done so much different like musical study in different genres and stuff, and that's definitely influenced my songwriting, and I've had to like unlearn some things along the way to like figure out what feels really good to me and what, because I think in the early days like a lot of it was like what perceived good music is as opposed to like what my taste in songwriting is. And I just enjoy so many different styles of music as well that sometimes it's hard to limit your writing to one thing. But like with Marigolden, I wanted it to be a project that was like the most natural writing for me. And I think I started in like a really more of like...
Sorry, Scout is just obsessed by something that's in your bag.
Oh my God, he's probably...
I can hear a wild amount of sniffing in the background.
Treats or something. What's in there? Sorry. Sorry.
No, it's fine.
Let me put it up here. Sorry, Scout. Yeah, the early days was like a lot more R&B and like jazz influenced and like spoken word and stuff. And also like my life was really chaotic at that time as well. And I think that kind of influenced my songwriting too.
Yeah, sorry. Come on, Scout.
What's in my bag? Classic dog interruptions. Yeah, I think my songwriting now has returned to like a very authentic and like low-key kind of place where it's like very much like storytelling songwriting, which is where I started my songwriting kind of journey, I guess. So yeah, it's kind of done like a full circle.
Yeah. Well, what did you mean when you said like, you know, you had to unlearn a bunch of stuff?
I think like, so get comfortable there, Scout. Yeah, love that for you. This is so validating to me, by the way.
Excellent.
Like I started writing songs when I was like a teenager, like probably like 13 or 14. And at the same time, I was getting into like classical music as well because my dad's a classical musician. And around 14 is when I got into like a classical voice program at school and stuff. And my musical life was like really split up into like those two areas. So like at home, I'd be listening to like Avril Lavigne and like the Veronicas and Alanis Morissette. And then at school, I'm like singing Mozart and like singing Haydn and just like these really different places. And yeah, writing songs on my like classical guitar at home that my dad got me for like completing a like AMEB voice exam and stuff like that. It was just like a really, really split up into those two different areas and like busking down at the markets and stuff like that, and then going to sing at like, you know, memorial services and funerals and stuff. It was really interesting. And so I had to like unlearn that simple music was bad, I guess. And I think that's something that at jazz school as well was like really hammered into me, was just like, it felt like the more complex the better.
Mm-hmm.
But I think my natural way of songwriting is like the simpler the better, and like the more authentic and closer you can get to the truth in like the simplest way possible. That's kind of my goal. And I think classical music and jazz both have like an elitism to them that is really challenging. And I never felt like I quite fit into either genre. And I think I had to unlearn those concepts of like, yeah, the perception of what good or complicated music is. Yeah.
What drove you to do the like change from classical music across to jazz and, you know, move to Melbourne? Were you in a mindset of, trying to pursue like art music or, you know, like a technical excellence?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I think like from when I was young, there was always that thing of like, well, if you learn classical technique, you'll always have that like under your belt, and like that will give you a good foundation, which has been true to some extent, but has also like set me up with other vocal challenges as well. And so I guess kind of like wanting to continue studying music at a tertiary level, I had to decide like what that looked like, and like moving to jazz felt like still like attaining that technical mastery, but moving more towards skills that might feel more natural or suitable to like my style. And I think it was like a good stepping stone, and I learned a lot from jazz that like still influences my writing in small ways now. But it's actually interesting, like Julie O'Hara was my first voice teacher in jazz, and I remember getting ready for the auditions with her, and she was like, I think you should study songwriting. And I was like, no, that's like not good enough or something. Like I had this idea that studying songwriting at like VU or something, like I think it was still that like elitism that I was talking about, that's like I still had this idea that like I had something to prove, and songwriting, like studying songwriting wouldn't be like grand enough or something like that.
Right.
And now I see myself more as a songwriter than a singer or anything else. So it's like, Julie, you were right. You were right, Julie.
She could just see it in you.
Yeah, I think so. But I think like I don't regret anything either. Yeah.
Because your dad was a like organ player, right? But like classical organ.
Yeah, pipe organist.
So was the like you listening to these, you know, like rock punk women vocalists at home, like a point of tension with the like the classical music stuff?
I think he probably thought it was funny and probably like a natural rebellion. Like I was always a little bit like rebellious and like quite opinionated and stuff, and always like I think it's natural, like kids listening to contemporary music, and then if there's a classical person in the family, they're just like, those darn kids. But my dad loves contemporary music as well, like and like when he would drive me to school, like we would listen to ABC Classic FM, and like he would like teach me music theory on the way to school and stuff, and we'd be like listening to stuff, and he'd be like, okay, like name the period that this symphony's from and whatever. Like he would teach me stuff in the car. So classical music was still a big part of my life. And I think he was like fine with me listening to contemporary music. Like it obviously wasn't his taste, but he wasn't about to like limit me. And like I would be listening to like Whitney Houston in my room, and he would be like, oh, she just sang a top G. That means you must have just sung a top G. And like he'd find little ways to like connect with me.
Oh, cool.
Through it as well.
Yeah, nice.
So yeah.
What's it been like then, you know, living and basing yourself here in Naarm rather than, you know, down south in Tassie, you know, where you grew up?
Yeah.
Have you found, you know, that this is the place that you want to be like settled and making, you know, music now?
Yeah, I think so. I think like I always knew that I would end up in Melbourne in a weird way. Yeah, I think it's like really common for people to move from Tassie to like the mainland, as we call it. And I just always had an inkling that I would end up in Melbourne for some reason. And I think the Tassie scene has changed quite a bit. Like Hobart does have more opportunity for music now, but like when I was growing up there, it was a lot more like there's just fewer opportunities, I would say, for like progression and fewer communities as well. So I find it like easier in Melbourne to be in some ways a little bit anonymous and not have to like like commit too hard to one thing in a way, because there are so many options and you can kind of experience so many different things, whereas Tassie felt more like if I was doing classical I wouldn't know how to like tap into other areas, or I didn't know people in the contemporary scene and stuff. Like I think it just would have been a lot more scary for me to like tap into those other areas. But like I'm sad to like live away from my family, but at the same time it's not an uncommon thing in my family. Like we have always been like quite dispersed geographically. And yeah, I am pretty independent, so it's sad and I get sad about it sometimes, but Tassie and growing up in Tassie is a big influence on my musical life anyway, even though I'm not there anymore. Yeah.
Well, I know a lot about what happened, you know, when you came to Monash for that period of time that, you know, we were hanging out a bit and made some fun music together, but it's very different to what you do now. What happened between, you know, when you finished the jazz degree? Because you were doing like quite a lot of different things at once, like, you know, a cappella vocal ensembles as well as like your original music. And, you know, we had like a funny loops electro thing.
So
and
cool.
Like you're just in so many different
I wanted
sort of
to be
chapters.
Kimbra so bad. It's so clear.
I think you did a great job at
Thank you.
You know, being pretty close. So what happened between, you know, there when I last saw you and the journey to coming to Marigolden?
I think I like after finishing uni, or like the jazz portion of uni, because I was doing a double. I took like a bit of time off, I think, and spent some time like processing everything we just learnt. Also, the last thing I did was New York. Like it was the New York program, and so I did my like final recital and then went to New York, and that was like incredible, and like just being able to like play music every day and getting up every morning and going to the practice room and write and stuff like that. And so coming back, like I still felt very like connected to jazz, and felt it influencing my own personal style quite a bit. And also just like enjoying what it was doing for my voice as well. Like my voice was changing a lot, and my voice has changed a lot since then as well.
What do you mean by that?
I think that like learning classical style has made, I've got like such a really strong top range, but it's really heady. It's really like light, but like it's not light, it's like strong, but it's very classical still.
Okay.
Because it's like I was literally studying classical music since I was 14 years old. Like that is so ingrained into like how to sing in my top range. And I'm really having to come to terms with that, because I just wish that I had more of like a consistent tone throughout. And that's something that I'm working on vocally at the moment. And that's something that studying jazz helped with as well, was like figuring out how to like learning classical. It's like nasal tone is like the bad guy. It's like the enemy. It's like if you sound nasally, it's like it's the worst thing. It's like such an insult. And then coming to jazz and Julie being like, bring a more nasal tone into it, I would be like, what are you talking about? It's disgusting. What are you talking about? And even if I heard nasal tones and I thought they were beautiful, it was just like really so it's like understanding different techniques now where that's if you're wanting like to sing in a certain range and have that tone, you will need to like actually use your nasal cavities to like resonate that tone in a safe and healthy and like pleasant way. And also like I understand my voice a lot more, like in terms of like how my body changes through the month, my hormones change through the month, that affects my voice, and how like what is pleasing to me and what tones and registers I want to sit in. Like, I think I just have a lot more of an understanding of my voice now. I think when I was younger, I was trying to be an opera singer, and then at jazz school, I was trying to be Gretchen Parlato, and then now I'm just like pretty happy accepting like my own voice, which is kind of nice, but still a journey.
Yeah.
We're getting there.
It must be challenging though, like to have been striving for these things to now be like, oh, like I would just like to sing like me.
Yeah. I think that's probably why I like identify more with being a songwriter now than a singer, because like a singer to me, I saw like Maggie Rogers talking about this recently. A singer to me is like, I don't know, like when I say singer, like who comes to mind for you?
Like just
like artists and stuff.
I don't know, like Aretha Franklin.
Yeah, right? Like big voices like Mariah Carey, like Whitney Houston, like Aretha Franklin. That's what I think about when I hear singer. Like I'm a singer. Or like Ariana Grande, like, you know, people like that. But I'm not like that. Like that's not my voice. I'm not like I have a big voice in ways, but like I'm not that type of singer. And I think that's probably why I identify more as a songwriter now, because like I think if I can write a really good song, my job as a vocalist is to then, or any vocalist is to like translate the meaning of that song. So for me, the value is then placed on the story I'm telling in the song I've written, as opposed to the technicalities of like a mad R&B banger or whatever.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Different to that, like, I guess, is it like belting?
Yeah.
Would be like the big female pop voice sort of
Totally.
thing.
Or even like light voices, but that can do like crazy runs or whatever. Like that's just not my voice. And that's, I think if it's something that I like dedicated myself to, like I could probably get there. But at the same time, like I think my voice suits, like I think my voice suits the style that I write in now the best. And that's probably not a coincidence. That's probably why it's supposed to be that way.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I guess, you know, the music you make feels, well, like it has like an authentic and raw quality to it.
Yeah.
And yeah, definitely like having your voice be natural suits that rather than striving for like, you know, overly complex or like technical ways of singing.
And I think classical and jazz, like as well, like it's like almost like you're striving for perfection. And so it's kind of liberating now to like write songs where it's like, if my voice does crack or like get husky or like whatever, like for me it's like the more emotional the better now, because I'm always I feel like I've spent so long striving for technical perfection that now I'm just like, well, fuck it, like I don't even, like that's not going to happen, and I like don't even need it to happen anymore. I think like I was writing songs as a kid, and I'm still writing songs now, and that's like what I always come back to with music. So yeah.
Was there something that helped you like change from that, like the perfectionist or, you know, like the striving for excellence to go, oh no, like I don't want to follow that pursuit?
Yeah. I think like the lockdowns were part of it, to be honest, like because when I started Marigolden, it was, like I said, more R&B and jazz influenced and stuff. And at the same time, I was still only like maybe a year or two out of uni. And then the lockdown, and I was like gigging a lot. Like I was really like gaining momentum in that space and stuff. And that was really, really cool. And then the lockdowns came and like I couldn't gig anymore. And I was like, oh shit. Like I think I'd released maybe like one song, and and it got really hard. It got really, really hard. And it was like, okay, we're not playing shows anymore. The momentum has stopped. Like the main like money like that I use for music always comes from music projects. So it's like I wasn't making any money because I wasn't playing any shows. And so I had to kind of like stop it when it got really hard and be like, why am I doing this? Like actually what? Like I had to like, I guess when I think about it, I think about like I had to like come back to like my relationship with music, because it had become more about my relationship with like everything around the music, like the gigs and like the promotion and the recording, and I'd like lost my relationship with music itself. And I wanted to like really test myself as to like, if that was like gone, it was gone. And that was really scary, because I was like someone who's like, I'm never going to give up on music. Like when I was younger, I was like, I'll just always do it. Like why would I ever stop? And I really had to like allow myself to like have some time where I wasn't like working towards a release or working towards a practice goal or like working towards a song, to like actually be like, what are you giving music and what is music giving you? Because if that's not there anymore, I don't think that the rest of it's sustainable. But luckily I got back to a place where like I remembered like music's like this is so I know it sounds really like esoteric or whatever, but it's like music takes care of me, and I think it takes care of a lot of people. I like, maybe you can relate to that. And I had to remember that like music has my back. Like when the industry doesn't, like music does. And like at the first show that I played after coming back out of the lockdowns, it was like, oh no, I think it was the second maybe, but like getting up on stage at the Curtin Hotel and just like being so present when I was playing, I was just like, it was a really powerful moment for me to just be like, I'm here with my songs and like we're all good up here. It was like really beautiful. So yeah, I don't remember the question.
I can't remember the question now either.
Sorry.
But we definitely got like a really nice insight into that journey. Oh, I think it was just about the journey of not like what changed it from the trying to be a perfectionist.
Yeah, totally. So I think, yeah, then it was like less about like, okay, cool, I'm going to write the most like interesting lyrics. Like I'm going to write these like amazing, I was really into spoken word and stuff. I was, like went from that, or it went from like being like whatever to just being like, whatever comes out, I'm going to stop judging it so much. Yeah.
Yeah, so what's the creative process like now? Is it quite free flowing for you when you're writing these songs, or do you still bring some of that more like the planning and the like analytical side to things, but just with a different, I guess, like end point or standard that you're holding yourself to, not trying to be clever or something?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, not trying to be clever is so intense. Like that is that hits me so hard. I still have to like tell myself to shut up sometimes and just be like, stop it, you're trying too hard. I think like now my process has always often been like an idea will come to you, right? Like lyrics or like a bass line or like some chords or whatever, or a melody. And then you like record it on your voice memos or like write it in your notes or whatever, and then like come back to it later, or like just you have to deal with it in the moment. I think like in the last few years I've tried to like be more disciplined with my songwriting, but I think a lot of it is like learning not to judge my ideas so much and allow that like maybe they won't be songs that I ever release, but the process of writing them is really important anyway, and then sometimes they actually turn out to be songs that are great. And then like the planning does come into it sometimes, but I think like I recently did a songwriting course with Adrian Lenker from Big Thief.
Wow.
Yeah. Online. I didn't get to like meet her or anything. But she's like an incredibly intuitive writer as well, and like is very much the process of just let your instincts like guide you and don't judge what comes out. And I think again it's like hard because I am able to write in a lot of different genres and I enjoy a lot of different genres, and then it's about making the choice about what makes sense for like the project or whatever, or like for a body of work, or for cohesion. But I think generally like it comes out quite naturally, and then there might be like sections that I'll like refine or whatever. but try and keep it like as organic as possible. Yeah.
That's a like mega throwback to episode 2 of the podcast.
Really?
Because Lucy shared about, I think her most recent album that she'd listened to was Adrian Lenker's new solo record.
Oh my God, don't. I haven't listened to the whole album yet, but like the song Anything, I'm literally deceased. Like it ruins me listening to that track. It is so good, and like it's literally just, I'm pretty sure it's just like verse, chorus, verse, chorus, verse, chorus. And there's not a lot of deviation. The lyrics are so good. It's like insane. That song is a masterpiece, which is funny because she also has a song called Masterpiece. But that song's amazing. And yeah, that album's incredible.
What a special thing though that you got to do a masterclass with her.
Yeah, it's like School of Song, which is like an online school of song.
Okay.
But they're very like yeah.
It's like an American company?
It's an American company. And I think it's like one of those things like institutionalizing music education is like sometimes weird. Do you know what I mean? Like the fact that we went to jazz school. How weird is that?
Yeah.
Like, imagine Miles Davis being like, I'm off to jazz school. I don't know. It's funny. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's so weird. But at the same time, I think they do it really well because it was like, yeah, it was very much Adrian's process, which was really intuitive and meditative. And that was so relieving to me to know that that was like a valid way of writing music.
Yeah, right.
Because I feel like we're often told that it's like, yeah, like I guess if you're like pumping out pop bangers or whatever, you can get into a real like format based way of writing, which is like, I think that's totally valid for that genre. But I'm definitely more of an intuitive writer, and it was really nice for that to be validated.
Yeah, I guess that goes against all of the different things that you're talking about, like in your training.
Yeah.
All of the, even if you went writing when you were like studying the like classical and jazz voice.
Yeah.
Like, you know, most of those compositions are not intuitives.
Totally.
So I'm glad that you got that because
Yeah.
it feels like it's, I don't know, the music you're making now is great.
Oh,
and it's nice hearing you be like, no, it's like, it's me, and
Yeah.
it's about being authentic and
Yeah.
just, you know, expressing the emotions as they're, you know.
Yeah. And I don't think I'm doing
happening.
anything groundbreaking either. Like, I think it's like, again, like the simplicity, like the simplest way to the truth or whatever. But I think about like composers and stuff, like I think Chopin's like one of my favorite composers, and I think like a lot of his piano pieces like at the time probably weren't in forms that like were like consistent with like previous compositions, but now it's like really standard. I don't know, like I think there's probably more intuitive writers out there than we know, but then we like put them into like these institutionalized like ways of learning about them and break their like techniques down or whatever, and it kind of takes the joy out of it a little bit, but it is cool to learn about. But yeah, I don't know, that's just my hot take.
Makes me feel like year 10 English, where it's like, oh, they chose like the colors of the walls in his room were blue
Yeah.
because it was
It means
expressing the like
this.
deeper depression of the
Yeah.
character.
It's like, I reckon he just liked blue, hey?
Yeah.
Like, or like not liked blue, but like something was
The
telling
author
him
just
to do
picked
blue.
blue.
Yeah,
Like,
literally.
Yeah, not necessarily was like, there's definitely writers that are super analytical like that,
Yeah.
but there's also others that were just writing a story.
Yeah.
But we
yeah.
pull it apart. And
And what
similarly
felt
for
natural.
music. Yeah.
Totally. So true.
Yeah. They probably weren't thinking, oh, I'm going to play this Locrian mode over the top
Yeah,
of this chord
exactly.
at the turnaround of, you know, the
Exactly.
progression.
And I like get it.
This
It's
felt
like,
good.
it just felt good. I understand that like you can learn to, like you learn a technique to be able to absorb it so that it can come out naturally or whatever. But I think like you also like maybe don't deep it so hard. Like it's, do you know what I mean? Like it's just, I think I'm really grateful for the privilege to have been able to like study music. I think like not everyone has that opportunity. And it allowed us to like spend so much of our time just like dedicated to music, which is like, how cool is that? But I think at the same time, like the times where you're just like sitting in someone's bedroom and like listening to an album and being like, did you hear that? Like, or also like some of the best lessons as well. So I don't know.
Well, I wanted to chat about, the recording of your music, because it's interesting hearing about, the process and stuff of you writing. But how much of the sounds that you make with the band project, with the band aspect of your project, like if we go like the most recent single, When the Sun Comes Out, it's got a great vibe, but there's drum parts and there's lots of different instruments and stuff. Are you hearing all of that stuff in your mind when you're writing the song, and then communicating it to the musicians that you bring in?
Yeah.
Or are you picking, different musicians for something that they bring along and saying, oh, this is my song, it's me and the guitar or whatever.
Yeah.
Can you add something?
Yeah. I think it like depends on the song sometimes. There's like certain songs where like I'll hear stuff really strongly, like hear a certain part really strongly or whatever. But I think I also like definitely pick musicians that I feel like are gonna be appropriate for like what I'm hearing, and I don't like write their parts or whatever, but I give very strong direction.
Okay.
Like I think this is like something that I've had to like accept, as well as like I do have quite a strong vision for things, and sometimes that can be like a blessing and a curse because I like know where I want it to go, but then also like I don't want to be too particular as well. So for like When the Sun Comes Out, for instance, like that was like, that's probably an example of when it was like much looser. Like it was kind of like quite, I think generally like my guitar playing like will give a good direction to like the people I'm working with about like what vibe I want. And then the bassist Loz, like we played that song together before live, and so she kind of knew what the vibe was and she had come up with a part and stuff. And then there'll be certain sections, like in the triplet sections, I wrote those parts. But then for like the general verse and chorus parts, she wrote those parts. So it's kind of like collaborative in that way as well.
Okay.
Like, yeah, I really heard the bass line for those few triplet areas, but in the rest of it, I was kind of like something bright and bouncy.
Sure.
Or like there'll be other sections where it's like whatever. And then for the drums, like a similar thing as well. Or for whatever instrument, like a similar thing. Like if I hear something, I'll like say it, but then I also will then otherwise just give like a general direction. But I think my main thing is like wanting to work with like kind people as well, like people I'm comfortable with. Yeah, I think that makes a big difference for me as well.
So how do you go about like the drum parts?
Yeah.
Do you feel it's just like any other instrument, and that that you're just giving them the freedom to like a small direction and it happens? Or do are you hearing more parts and you might send like a reference track or like vocalize a bit more of like a drum beat, like so they know, oh yeah, this one's like the backbeat's here, or it's not half time, or
I think
whatever?
it's like depends on the song again. Because like there's some songs where it's like it will be like more straight ahead or whatever, but then even with those songs I find myself being like, but actually can you do this, which is like I want to develop better skills around like my communication in that way, but generally like we get to a good place, like we always do actually. Like for instance, like I just recorded a song that's not released, and I was like, it's a pretty like straight ahead beat, like you can listen to the song and just be like, okay, this is just like a really straight ahead rock beat, but I was like really hearing toms like as like the driving force, because it was like almost like this like anticipatory like energy, like a rumbly thunderstorm or something.
Cool.
And so like I gave that direction, and then the drummer asked me to send through a couple of reference tracks as well. I always find it so hard to do that because it's like, yeah, you'll have like specific things in your mind, and it might be that the production's like shifted the tone of the drums, or like maybe it is a production thing. Like I love the sound of like roomy drums, for instance, and it's like that's not much that the drummer can do about that because they're just playing the drums in the room. But like, so yeah, I'll say like I kind of give direction on that, or up to like, can we have like more shimmery sounds here or whatever. But drums are like probably the hardest because like it's so many things. Like the drums are probably the most intimidating to me because I think it's the hardest for me to find language around.
Sure.
When I'm communicating with drummers. But that's even more reason why I like to find nice drummers to work with. And like drummers that get it, like or like get the songs and I think like want to serve the song more than like show off or anything like that. And I think that's across the board for any musician as well.
Is that because you've booked someone for a session and they just, went to like gospel chops mode and said, check out these hot licks? And you're like, could you please just, maybe we could try like brushes on 2 and 4. And they were like, oh yeah. And then like, here's some polyrhythms and check out these paradiddle inversions.
I don't think so. I think it's probably a jazz hangover, to be honest.
Okay.
Like, because like, I don't know, like, do you remember in jazz days when it would be like, what in jazz days, if you were asked to like bring brushes out, would you be like, oh my God, don't, or like mallets, stop. You were great because you loved mallets though, because like I felt like comfy about that. Like I remember when we would play together, you would like, mallets are cool. But there are drummers out there who like, especially in the jazz days, that would be like, ugh, brushes, or like, ugh, mallets. I remember asking a drummer to like use his hands one time and he was just like, I knew you were going to ask that. And I was like, okay. Like, I'm just trying to express what I'm hearing. So I think that it's probably a hangover from that. And I think that like musicians or like drummers at this stage of like my career or whatever would be a lot more like musical with like less ego kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think when you're learning, you're a lot more like wanting to really prove yourself and stuff. So it's probably that. Yeah. I haven't had a negative experience like that. I've always felt like pretty strongly about giving direction.
Yeah, cool. Well, we play a little game on the podcast.
Oh my God, I'm so ready.
Where I get questions from each guest for the next anonymous guest.
Okay, cool.
So I've got a question for you from the previous podcast guest.
Okay.
Mick Ma.
Okay.
Who's just done, co-wrote and produced Till My Song Is Done, the new Emma Donovan record.
Oh my God, amazing.
And he's done a bunch of really cool stuff too.
Yeah.
But anyway, this is Mick's question for you.
Okay.
Which album in history would you like to be sitting on the couch in the studio bearing witness to the album's creation? Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh my God. That is such a hard question. So many albums just went through my mind.
Quickfire, give us all of them.
No, stop. Okay, I think my answer is going to be Joni Mitchell's Blue.
Oh.
That is like such a pivotal album in my life. And I think the reason I love Joni Mitchell so much because I think she is like such a rebellious character. Like she literally doesn't give a fuck about the industry. She never has. And Blue is like such a personal account of her experiences. And she's such a fierce character, but the album is so gentle that I'm just like, I wonder what that would have been like. Like, for her to, I don't know. I think she's like the coolest person in the world, and that album is so well crafted. Yeah, I'm going to say Blue.
Yeah, cool.
Joni Mitchell.
Do you like the studio side of, the music making?
I do, like when I'm with the right people. I've definitely had experiences that have been negative and have left me like a little bit shook. I'm working a lot at the moment with a producer called Natasha Newling, who's amazing, and like we just have the best fun together. And I think that's been like a big process of the studio side of things, is like it can get so stressful in the studio, like you have limited time because you're paying a lot of money, and if you don't get it in, like you'll have to pay more money later, or you just have to use what you have. And so I think for me, like I know some people like can just like get it done under that kind of pressure, but I think it's like generally much better for your well-being to like be around people who can like hold you in that space. And I've now got like people that I work with in the studio who do feel great to work with, and it's like a lot of fun in the studio. The last studio experience I had was like the most emotionally beautiful experience for me, and it was just amazing. And so I'm really grateful to like people like Natasha and Loz was there as well, and like lots of people, friends, just friends.
Cool.
And yeah. So yeah, I like the studio, but as long as it's like that.
No, well, it makes sense. It makes sense.
Yeah.
A studio can be like an intimidating place.
Yeah.
And like you said, you've got all the other pressures of I've got to get it done, or it costs this much money, or
Yeah.
I've got to deal with like the ego of this person or something.
Literally.
Like you don't want any of that. It's so great that you've found these people around you to go, not just friends and safe space, but also like making great music together.
Totally. Yeah, it's so fun.
It's really special.
Yeah, it is really special. I feel very, very grateful.
Is this the experience that you're feeling most great about? Is that for the unreleased track, or the experience before that for the
No, well, I mean, I think this most recent one was for a couple of tracks that aren't released. And yeah.
Cool.
So yeah, I'm excited. And I'm like, they're probably like some of my favorite songs.
Awesome.
As well. And yeah, just like nice having moments where it's like, again, I was really connecting with like the story of the song, and like having this moment where I was like, imagine if my parents saw me now. Or like one song that was about my best friend and like she's pregnant now, and I'm like, imagine. Like it's just stuff like that, and it's nice to have that emotional awareness amidst like quite a high pressure situation, I guess. But it's also like I had this moment where I was like, I'm literally like, I've written a song, I'm like a child, like I'm like, will you record this thing that I made up? Like, you know when you were little and you'd be like, look, I made up a dance, and then you get someone to film you or whatever. Like that's literally what recording music is. It's like, I made up this song. Will you record it for me? Will you? Like it's so funny, and just like to remember that joy of it, I think is really important for me. Yeah.
It's a special perspective to bring into it. Like, oh, it's just like I'm 5 and I've pulled the parents into the lounge room to sit down for this presentation of 100%. The thing I've done.
That's what it is. Like at the end of the day, and like hopefully people get stuff out of it, and like it like resonates with other people. But it's also just like, look at this thing I made. I don't know.
I guess it's like, it just goes back to like the authenticity of you're just doing it for like you and the experience of that, and you're saying things about the life experiences that you're having or the people in your life. It's not about you're trying to do this as like to be a commercial pop star or to make $1 million on the record.
I don't think so. I don't think it's in my wheelhouse. Yeah,
I think it's good though, because all of that stuff can come, but if you're making the music because that's what matters, then it's putting it in the right spot.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I feel very strongly about that. And I think like the last 6 months or so, I've been able to meet more and more people who share similar values in the industry, and have given me a little bit more faith, and reminded me that like the industry is not like we are the industry, like you and I are the industry, like the people in the music industry are the industry. And like do you know what I mean? Like I'm one of those people. It's not like different to me.
Yes,
I can create it how I want it to be, and meeting more people who share those values and stuff is like a reminder that you can do it however you want to do it, and not like a certain way that is existing or better.
Well, Mel, what question would you like to ask the next guest?
Okay, let me have a think. Does it have to be music related? Probably.
No, it can be. The fun part about this segment is that we've been on quite a journey.
Really?
Of different types of questions coming through. So
what are some examples?
What makes you you?
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. If you could play another instrument, what would that be?
Love that.
Would you change to an alternative instrument? If you could be just as good as that instrument as you are at your instrument?
Okay, you're giving me some ideas.
But I just want you to take this wherever you want, to you at least know that the next guest will be a musician.
Okay.
But you don't have to ask them about music. It could be anything.
Okay. Oh my God, okay. If you could only play, like actually you playing the song, like you on your instrument or whatever, if you could only play one song for the rest of your life, every time you picked up your instrument, what song would it be?
Wow.
I don't even know what I would answer to that.
No. I hope it's a really long song.
Like every time, because don't you ever think about that with like artists who like really commercially successful artists who have to tour, and it's like 50 years later and they have to play their hit song. Yeah.
We had the very first podcast guest was Greg Arnold, and Greg's like big song was "Happy Birthday Helen" with his band Things of Stone and Wood.
Okay.
And that's like, okay, he's been playing that song for 30 years because every gig, regardless of if it's a gig with his band or even now just under his solo project, everybody wants to hear the song, so he's got to play it. And it's been interesting. Like Lucy and I got asked to play with him last year for, part of his tour just when he was in Melbourne.
Yeah.
And, for us, it's like really fun. It's like, we're playing the big hit. And, for Greg, it's like about like, oh, well, how do I bring like, some joy to this so that it's not just like, oh my gosh, I'm like laying another brick. I like,
like again.
Yeah.
Like again.
Exactly. Cause it could just be such hard work.
Literally.
Yeah.
And like songs that we love so much that, like you said, you're just like, this is it. And then it's like, I had like a mentor session recently with Tanya Doko, who's the singer of Bachelor Girl, and their big hit is like Buses and Trains, which is like a pivotal song to me. Like,
okay.
I remember when I was a kid listening to it and being like, they are so cool. Like, I want to be like them. And I remember telling her that, and like, I feel like it was just one of those moments where she was like, thank you, like had heard it so many times before. Yes. And I was like, no, I can't convey how special it is, but it's just like, yeah.
You could see it in their eyes that they're like, oh yes.
It's like this again.
Another
literally.
one.
And I'm like, oh my gosh. So yeah. And it can be a song that is like an original song of yours, or it can be someone else's song. It can be any song. But what would you, you can like listen to other music, but you can only play that song.
Yeah, interesting. Well, could you put on your best like question asking voice?
Yeah.
And give me a nice snippet of the question?
Yeah. If you could only play one song on your instrument for the rest of your life, what song would it be?
Thanks, Mel.
You're welcome.
I like to end with 5 short answer questions.
Okay, I'm ready.
What is your favourite venue to play in Melbourne?
I think I'm just going to go with the classic and say the Gasso.
Oh.
Yeah.
Cool.
I've had a lot of fun every time I've played there.
Nice.
Yeah.
I didn't realise that the roof opened up until I played a gig
so
there.
cool.
I think earlier this year or last year or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And then all of a sudden someone was just like, and I was like, wow.
So cool.
Yeah.
The coolest.
Well, then what is your dream venue to play at?
In Melbourne?
Just your dream.
Oh my God. The first thing I thought of was the Forum.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say that because the roof there is incredible, and it's also just an iconic venue.
Yeah. What is your coffee order?
Okay, it's changed recently. My coffee order is now an oat milk cappuccino because I really want the little chocolate on top.
Oh,
yeah.
Nice.
It used to be latte.
What drove the...
I just want a little bit of chocolate.
Nice. What is your favourite place to get food after a gig in Melbourne?
Oh, I just do Macca's drive-through on the way home, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah. Classic. I like getting home. I live like quite far away from the city. So yeah, I just do a classic Macca's drive-through.
What's the go-to order?
Well, it depends like what my vibe is, like how hungry I am.
Okay.
But always large chips and lemonade.
Ah.
Large chips, large lemonade. Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Because like I don't want a full meal. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, so do you mean just large chips and lemonade?
Yeah, because like you're going home, you don't want to... I mean, it depends if you've eaten earlier in the day. Yeah.
So sometimes you might add something, but
sometimes I might add
just...
something, but yeah.
Yeah, cool. All right, well, finally, what is one piece of advice that you would give to your younger self?
Oh my God. Little baby. I would say just like trust yourself a bit more and like just there's no rush. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Mel, for like sharing so much about, you know, your musical journey and life. It's been really special to catch up with you.
Thanks for having me. This has been so nice, and Scout's just been cuddling me the whole time, which I love.
My favorite co-host.
Yeah, you're a good dog.
If anyone wants to get in touch with you because they're like, oh, I'd love to, you know, buy some music or see a show or do a songwriting session.
Yes.
Or, you know,
oh
anything.
my God, please.
What's the best way for them to get in contact with you?
Probably just Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
which is at Marigolden AU. And yeah, just like chuck us a DM there, to be honest. It's probably the best way. And my email address is on my bio there as well. But I'm pretty like approachable, I hope. So yeah, you can just message me.
Awesome. I'll put a link up to your Instagram in the on the website with your episode.
Cool. Awesome.
Thanks so much, Mel. Like super keen for the new music.
Thank you.
And it'll be exciting to see, you know, where the next phase of Marigolden goes.
Thanks, Luke. It's been so nice to catch up.
Thanks for joining us on Our Drummers Musicians. I hope you enjoyed diving into the world of another musician as much as I did. Help us grow by leaving a review and sharing the podcast with your friends, family, favourite artist, or anyone else who might enjoy it. For more info and updates, visit ourdrummersmusicians.com. See you next time.